The funny thing about recording your videos in advance is you put out something about how you're planning to read this series, and by the time you do the weekly update the next day, yeah, you've already read it. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update. This week talking about the week that was, the week that will be. As always, we're rolling through January, guys. It's going by so fast, you can't even keep up. You know, as soon as you return to the workforce, you find out that, hey, you run out of days really, really quick in the matter of a week. But let's go ahead and do it like we always do, guys, on a weekly update. Let's talk about what I've been reading, because a lot has happened here. Remember last week I told you guys I was reading Revival? Well, I finished Revival. Absolutely wonderful book. I think that if you do not include 11/22/63, I think this is the best book that Cy King has written since the 90s. That's how much I enjoyed this. So good. It's one of those that, like, you're reading it and you're like about 2/3 through it and you're like, this just reminds me why I love reading Stephen King. He just tells a life story of a character over decades like no one else can. It's absolutely amazing. And that ending, it's still in my head. I finished a week ago, and it's still in my head. I can't stop thinking about it. It's amazing what the old man did with that book, and I just feel foolish for waiting so long to read it, because it's just fantastic. But we're going to talk about Revival more here in a little bit. But here's the funny thing is I just talked about how I was going to be starting Realm of the Elderlings. Yeah, I already finished Assassin's Apprentice. So I guess that means the question is going to be, well, did you like it? Obviously, I obviously liked it. Here's the thing now, guys, with working again, is someone told me on the Discord, they said, I feel like you're reading faster now than when you weren't working. Well, here's the deal. I do a carpool, so I've got an hour to read in the morning, an hour to read in the afternoons, and usually an hour on my lunch break. So that's almost 3 hours of uninterrupted reading time. So yeah, you're going to find time to kind of roll through some series, and I did roll through that. I am going to do a review for Assassin's Apprentice. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it for the individual books, or if I was going to do it for the trilogies with Robin Hobb. But I feel like there's enough to talk about, non-spoilery, that I could do a review for this, because there's a lot to talk about. And it's kind of like the Stephen King thing that I just said. It's one of those things where you're telling, like, over the years of someone's life, and you think a lot of people will be like, that's just dreadfully boring, whereas I just can't get enough of it. I just love coming-of-age stories. And the older I get, the more I like hearing a little bit more after coming of age. You know, those things are always fun to listen to. But yeah, very, very busy week of reading. I didn't expect to finish Farseer until God knows the end of the month. And that's the thing, is I've already finished my TBR for January. So what does that mean? Well, that's a good segue into what am I going to read. And right now, my first book I had planned to read in February was Mr. Rocchio's Howling Dark. This is book number 2 in the Sun Eater series. If you guys aren't reading Sun Eater, you're missing out. Very, very good sci-fi. He calls it sci-fantasy. I'm still sticking with sci-fi. Yeah, it's got spaceships and we're planet hopping now. Very science fiction. But again, having a good time with it. As always, his writing style just kind of blows me away. I think the thing that I said with Assassin's Apprentice and Revival was, it's amazing how easy it is to read a book after you finish reading a Malazan one. It feels like it's like unlocks a new level in your brain. It accelerates everything. So I was reading like a little faster, but I think there was more to it than just that. But anyway, Mr. Rocchio, yeah, his prose will slow you down a little bit, and that doesn't mean it's not easy to read. It's just it's so beautiful, you kind of want to take your time with it. But here's the deal with this book, man. I'm having a blast with it. It's very, very different. I know a lot of the criticisms of book 1 where it felt too Name of the Windy, which I didn't find, but you know, I've talked about that many times. I didn't find it too Dune-ish either, besides, hey, they have shields. That's about it. But yeah, if Dune has rights to shields and Name of the Wind has rights to someone telling their life story, there's a lot of books, I guess. I've just got to not count reading, right? But yeah, so that's my first book for February. And here's the thing, I think I'll be done with that before February even begins. So it's like, what do I do now? Because I don't want to end up reading my entire February TBR before I even get through January. That would really, really muck up my schedule, right? So I've had a lot of people saying, hey, you know, you just did those fantasy cuts that you had to do. Why don't you just work some of those in? Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of that video. Is what I said was, I don't want to start a bunch of series. In 2019, I started like 12 series, like book 1s. and then it was trying to juggle all those at once. I didn't want to do that again. I want to kind of read trilogies and things like that while I'm going through Malazan, because I don't want to just, I only got limited space left up here, guys. So I thought, what can I do? Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to fit some rereads in. In 2017, I reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's something that I do about every 2 or 3 years. Because, well, I love it, and it's good for you, things like that. But what I didn't do is I didn't reread The Hobbit. And I always thought it was because I was going to read it with my kid. But I was like, that doesn't need to be an extra. I can just do both of those. I can read it for myself again and reread it. And hey, guys, I read like I said, I reread the Lord of the Rings trilogy about every 2-3 years, but I haven't read The Hobbit in a good, gosh, probably like right before the first movie came out. So that was, what, 2012, I think? So I decided I was going to read this annotated Hobbit version, which I've never read before. And it's got so many cool notes and pictures and stuff. It's so cool. I started reading that today, and I got through Riddles in the Dark. You know, that famous scene with Gollum. And it's just such a charming ass book, man. Do I really need to tell you what's great about The Hobbit? I mean, I feel like if you got a BookTube channel and you focus on fantasy and you haven't talked about Tolkien, I mean, that's the thing. I haven't talked about Tolkien a lot. I talk about how much I like Tolkien, but I haven't actually done any Lord of the Rings coverage because before The Virus Shall Not Be Named, I had planned on doing a complete retrospective of Lord of the Rings, including The Hobbit, when the Amazon series was about to come out, and that got delayed so much now. I guess I should probably move those up, but do I really need to do a why you should read for Lord of the Rings? I don't know. I feel like everyone's kind of read it at this point, but I guess I did one for Stormlight Archive, and nobody's read that. But yeah. Always time to go back to the master and see what has made it age so incredibly well. So many things in here I'm having just a great time with that I just, I think the pardon my French here, but the ass stain that was that movie adaptation, it shouldn't have been 3 movies. Warner Brothers, you're idiots. I'll talk about you here in a minute too. I think that just kind of like clouded my memory of how much fun this book is. I mean, that's the first fantasy book I ever read right there, right? So a lot of nostalgia, but I'm reading it now and I'm like, this is still really, really good. It's so many, just scraping the surface of the ideas that he had before Lord of the Rings. And it's so much fun. It really is. I'm having a great time with it. And I can't wait to continue, especially with that beautiful annotated version, because there's so much art and notes and stuff that I've never seen before that makes it almost like a whole new reading experience. So that's what I'm doing right now. If I continue to read at this torrent pace, which I seem to be, I was thinking about what else I could kind of litter in. Last year, I started rereading the Thrawn trilogy, and I only read 2 of the 3 books. I didn't read the 3rd one. So I was like, what was that about, Mike? I don't know what happened. I got kind of bogged down on my schedule and I had to lock. I think that was when I was trying to make it before JordanCon, before it got canceled. And I just had to scrap anything that wasn't Wheel of Time or Dresden Files and just kind of moved it to the side so I could finish those books beforehand. I think that was one of the casualties there. So if I do find myself continue to have an extra free time right now, because I don't want to read so far ahead that I'm just starting Malazan books early, because that would kind of defeat the purpose of a read-along, right? So I'm going to read the Thrawn trilogy, book 3, which is The Last Command, and it's the first time I'm rereading those in a long time, so I don't really need to give you guys a reason why I read EU books, right? Because over the course of the time, when I have time like this, I'd love to start picking those back up and go all the way through New Jedi Order again, because I love the New Jedi Order. And I can't stop talking about the Star Wars EU. Yes, there is only one EU. Let's talk about this week on the channel. I did talk about my tough fantasy cuts. Now, again, when you got to move, you want to prioritize science fiction, obviously something has to fall. And that meant that some of the fantasy had to fall. And there's a lot of series on there that people were upset they wanted me to read and cover this year. Guys, now that I'm working again, it seems funny to say that when I was saying my reading is, I'm finding more time to read now. It's not just that. I don't want to load so many series in there again. Just kind of, taking it easy. Once you focus on Malazan, focus on Robin Hobb. That's my 2 big series this year. And then just kind of litter other things in and, follow some of the series that I'm going to be doing after that. I'm going to be doing, Remembrance First Pass. I'm going to be doing, like I said, I'm going to finish Farseer. At this rate, I might move in Live Ship this year. I don't even know. By the way, with the Farseer trilogy, because of this, I have adjusted my schedule. I know in that video I said I was going to be doing Royal Assassin in March and Assassin's Quest in May. I've actually moved that up now. It's going to be January, February, March. So after Howling Dark, I'm going to be reading Dark Tower 2, Drawing of the 3 by Stephen King, because that's for the Into the Multiverse for the month. And then I'm going to do Royal Assassin before I do Dead House Gate. So, guys, it's just exciting times right now. So much fun stuff to read. But yeah, tough fantasy cuts. None of that stuff on that list was made lightly. Do I see any of that stuff sneaking in? I mean, I did say Book of the Ancestor was the toughest cut that I had to do that was, actually on the schedule and had to cut it out. Same with Anna Stevens' Godblind trilogy. So if I move any up, it'll be those before I get to anything else. I know a lot of the comments were all about Powder Mage. A lot of people wanted me to do Powder Mage rather early. And I'm going to talk about Powder Mage here in a minute too. Lots of stuff outside of books to talk about this week. I did my spoiler talk. Part 2 for Guardians of the Moon. That's for people that are doing the read-along. They feel like, hopefully they finished the book by now. I don't know, because we're going to be moving to Dead House Gates. February 1st through March 31st is the read-along schedule for Dead House Gates. So on the Discord, I'll be closing all those threads. I've had a lot of people, are you going to archive those? No. That's the point of a read-along, guys. You follow along with our read-along schedule, or you just go it on your own. So no, those threads will be deleted. And we'll be opening the new ones for Dead House Gates, because I don't want the Discord to just get so just cluttered that you can't find anything that you're looking for. So I've had a lot of people disgruntled about that, but we are sticking to that schedule. So anyway, Part 2, I felt like it was different than Part 1. Part 1, I felt like I was kind of grasping everything. Part 2, things got a little hairy, and I talked about in that video. But again, it's a lot of fun talking about Guardians of the Moon. How I think it's kind of been misunderstood, I think, a little bit. It's easy to misunderstand that book. But I think all the fear-mongering about it was kind of ill-placed. But as long as you go into it with that attitude of, hey, I'm not going to understand everything in a 10-book series in book 1. It's not that kind of traditional fantasy. So I am in it for the long run, and I'm excited what I've seen so far. Then, of course, here we go again, Robin Hobb. I did my Why I Decided to Read Realm of the Elderlings. Now, look, guys, now that I'm back at work, I'm recording 2 or 3, sometimes 4 of these videos at a time, and then I just spread them out during the week. So, yeah, that video came out yesterday, and that was the thing, is before that video even premiered, I had already finished Assassin's Apprentice. So, I didn't expect to read it that fast, of course. That's one part, but again, sometimes that's just going to happen. I don't feel like it changes anything. It's just kind of a snapshot in time. But if you guys were wanting to read along with me, like I said, just make sure I moved it up to February and March. The thing about that is I think I spent more time on that intro than I had on one since Dune. Finding the perfect quotes that I felt, finding art that wasn't spoilery. And there is a lot of great fan art out there for the I guess Realm of the Elderlings as a whole, because I know there was some stuff that wasn't from Farseer. So I didn't want to kind of spoil myself there, but trying to find quotes that weren't spoilery, things like that. It's always a lot of fun researching and trying not to spoil yourself. I don't know if people would consider that fun. I do, trying to find things like that without spoiling yourself. It was even harder with Malazan because no one could tell me what it was about. But with I felt like with Realm of the Elderlings, it was more of a story of how I got here, why I've heard this for almost 25 years now and haven't read it. So I'm excited to make that journey. And the good news is I like the first book, and that's the one that everybody says is like the toughest. So if it gets better from here, man, I can't wait, because I'm all about them animal companions. Let's talk about a little bit of next week plans. It's going to be more Guardians of the Moon stuff. So I hope you guys are doing the read-along. That is the priority on this channel this year and next is the Malazan read-along. So if you aren't doing that, there is going to be a lot of content for that. But it'll be the beginning of wrapping it up. I'll do my standard review on Monday. That's my standard non-spoiler review. And then I'll be doing my wrap-up is what I'm going to do with each book, my wrap-up. And that's when I'm going to have on a Malazan veteran to talk to me about it. And obviously, for the Guardians of the Moon is going to be Iskar Jurak, who, like I said, has the most bomb-ass Malazan channel on the net. I hope you guys will find it and subscribe. I can't wait to pick his brain about this. There will be no spoilers after Guardians of the Moon, obviously. I haven't read that far yet, so I would love for it not to be any spoilers past that. So as long as you've read the first book, you're going to be safe, but it will be a full spoiler discussion. I would not have a Malazan veteran on and not talk spoilers with him. So I'm going to talk about the good and the bad of Licanius. I've been talking about making this video for a while, but I'm putting it on video here so I can hold myself accountable. I feel like this is a trilogy that's gotten a lot of mixed signals. Like, because I only reviewed the first book and not the whole series, people assumed I didn't like it. I did, but it's not perfect. It's very ambitious for a first-time author. But I'm going to kind of talk about the stuff that I really like, the stuff that I didn't like. I would say that the spoilers would be like very, very light. Like, if you want to know absolutely nothing, then I probably would just stick to my non-spoiler review that I did for Licanius, the first book. But if little tiny tidbits, nothing that's going to ruin the series for you, but little tiny tidbits, I'm going to have to kind of talk about those, to talk about what made them good and what made them bad. And I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is all the people that get butthurt about saying it's like Wheel of Time. I'm going to address that stuff and tell people why I think people think that, why I disagree, and why I think it does some things better. It does some things not as good. The magic system's not as good as Wheel of Time, but I do think that a little bit of a certain group of characters is better than some of the things that Wheel of Time did. And I'll get into that. So there's your little hook if you're a wheelie. If I have time, guys, like I said, I do try to record all these on the weekends, but, trying to cram all that in the weekends, it's tough, especially since I'm going to be talking to my patrons this weekend. I'm going to be, maybe, if I can, I'm going to do my top 10 Michael Crichton books. This is something that was requested. I love Michael Crichton. I talked in depth about Michael Crichton on the channel, about my experiences with him, growing up with him in high school. That was basically him, King, and Anne Rice were like my high school years right there. So I can always talk about Michael Crichton. And then people say, well, what's your favorite? And I'm like, well, shoot, I have to really think about it. I feel like it changes over time. And this is long-term planning for this channel. Like when I'm like 50, if I'm still doing this. What I'm doing with Into the Multiverse right now, I'd like to do something similar with Michael Crichton, where I do like one book of his per month kind of thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun because, again, one of my favorite authors of all time. But that'll just depend on you guys, if that's something that you guys want, I do the King thing because it's something that I want and some viewers appreciate. But the Crichton thing, I love the man. I can talk about him as little or as much as you guys want. Depends on you. I hope more of you will pick up the man's books. But again, that's if I have time this week, I'll try to get that out because I have no idea how I would rank those, honestly. There are a couple of non-book things here in TV and movie talk. Just real quick, Powder Mage, I mentioned that earlier. Apparently, it's getting a TV adaptation. Now, I thought at first, is it just someone just bought the rights and then they're going to sit on them? No, apparently they've already got a showrunner and everything. I got the email from Orbit today. They're bragging about that. So before that comes out, that'll be a series I have to read, so that will definitely be happening in 2022. That was one of my tough cuts. Some sad news is that Mike Flanagan, who I think right there with Frank Darabont is the absolute best at adapting Stephen King works. And I love Dr. Sleep. I love Gerald's Game. I think that they're both spectacular. I think I like both of them better than I like the books, and I love both of those books. Well, Dr. Sleep is okay, but I love Gerald's Game. Anyhow, he was going to be doing Revival, which I just finished, and I thought it was going to be awesome, but apparently it's not happening, and he's not really given a lot of details as to why. I have my suspicions. Some people said, oh, it's going to be too expensive. Now that I've read it, I'm like, I don't see how that would be too expensive. I think the bigger problem is that's one of the darkest endings that King has ever written. And I'm pretty sure I know Flanagan. He is a King devotee. He is not going to change anything. And I'm pretty sure the studio said, you can't have that ending. It's too dark. And he said, peace. That's my opinion. That's what I think happened. But again, I don't know. The other side of it could be that, look, I knew when Dr. Sleep bombed at the box office, I was afraid this was going to happen. I feel like the King Renaissance, Renaissance is coming to a close. It kind of brought it back, but then they put out that garbage version of Pet Sematary, this mediocre version of The Stand. So I've heard, I haven't watched it yet, just everything I see or hear about it, I don't care for. And I feel like that star's starting to fall again, which makes me very, very sad. But again, they didn't learn their lesson. They're not understanding the source material is great and you don't have to change it for it to be great. But yeah, I thought that this might happen with this movie or any Mike Flanagan Stephen King adaptations, just because Dr. Sleep didn't do well at the box office. The last hope I have is that he'll talk Netflix into letting him adapt Dark Tower. That's my greatest hope. Lastly, I want to talk about Christopher Nolan. I haven't watched Tenet yet. Christopher Nolan apparently is breaking up with Warner Brothers. And I know I pick on Warner Brothers a lot in this channel. And guys, damn it, they deserve it for reasons like this. Apparently, he's been very, very mouthy about they're taking all their movies and putting them on HBO Max. Now, while I have been in support of this, especially during the virus that shall not be named, I understand where the directors are coming from. Denny V is very, very upset that, he's basically poured his heart and soul into adapting Dune, and now it's going straight to a streaming service. I can understand how that upsets some of these directors, but apparently it's gotten very, very bad with Warner Brothers and Nolan to the point where he's like, you know what? I've been with you guys for 20 years. I'm out. And Warner Brothers is acting like they hold the high ground here. Look, guys, You need Christopher Nolan more than Christopher Nolan needs you. I'm sure there is a mini studio out there who will pick up Christopher Nolan for his next movie. I don't think that he's worried about that whatsoever. But Warner Brothers is like, I gave him credit for having the balls to do that. To hey, it's going to release on streaming the same day it releases in theater. I still think you guys should do video on demand and charge for these movies. That's how I would do from a business standpoint. But don't ruin your relationship with your biggest moneymaker. Yeah, and I know that people are mixed about Tenet, but look, it's a Christopher Nolan movie. If The Fires That Shall Not Be Named hadn't happened, that movie would have made $1 billion at the box office, I'm sure, because it's Christopher Nolan, and his name demands your respect in your eyes to go view and pay for his product. So, yeah, Warner Brothers just can't do anything right, can you? Can't do anything right. Move up Dune to an earlier release date, and I'll forgive you. But guys, that's all that I have for this week. Lots going on, lots to read, man. I can't believe how fast I'm going through some of these books. And I think it's just because they're great books. I'm having a great time with them. Nothing is really kind of slogging right now. I'm having a really, really good time with some of the picks that I've made and some of the picks that you guys have made for me. And I thank you for that. What about your picks, guys? What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you playing? No wrong answers. Drop in the comments and let me know. And have yourselves a great, great weekend.